So good evening, and welcome to the Red Friday. It's a day where people power supporters from the diaspora come together to discuss a number of key issues that are affecting Ugandans here and back in Uganda. More specifically, what Ugandans in the diaspora see that could, one, improve the economy of Uganda, or three, or two, share the mindset of those here in the diaspora. So we want to thank you for joining us right now, from wherever you're watching us from. My name is David Rubura, and you're watching us from the People Power Media Center. I'm joined by a number of colleagues to give out their views on the key things that are happening in the country. Yesterday, we saw a young man from Masaka who set himself on fire because of the challenges that he has been facing, the bribery and the corruption that has been eating up the country for the last number of years. And up to today, such cases are still happening. So today, these are some of the things we are going to be discussing. Many of you watched the Freedom Show last Sunday. You had so many questions from different mainstream media houses, social media platforms. All these are going to be answered today. But most importantly, the question is, are you ready to always embrace the Red Friday to show your dissatisfaction or satisfaction based on what you see happening in Uganda? So, comrades, I want to thank you so much for joining us. We are live on close 24 media platforms. So wherever you are, your friends, your relatives are seeing you. This is the best place for no mistakes. So I want to thank you so much once again. I want to give you all one by one, 1 second to introduce yourself, the place where you are right now and where we're discussing from. So I would like to start with Patricia. Patricia, how is your weekend so far? How are things going?
My weekend is absolutely excellent. Thanks for asking. Hello, Bobby.
All right, so Patricia, I want to give you just a second to, you saw what happened, or you read about what happened in the massacre. What impact does it create to you?
Well, first of all, I would like to send my condolences to family members of the young man that died in massacre, that burnt himself to death. I'm so happy to be part of the People Power movement, fighting alongside Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu. His death goes to show that we are supposed to be here doing this right now in this space. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. And I'll go straight to the person next to you, Haruna. Haruna, you've read about the story, but please tell us where you are, and we can start from there.
Thank you so much, host Mr. David. My name is Jeremy Haruna Farouk. I'm based in Dubai, UAE, the Arab Emirates. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much. Edward, at least I can tell you from Texas, but tell us where you're
from. Thank you, David. My name is Edward Abili from Texas. I'm glad to be in your show.
All right, thank you so much. Barbara, I'll skip some space and get straight to Barbara.
My name is Barbara Nanyonga in Washington, D.C., and a Ugandan activist.
All right,
thank you,
Barbara
David.
and Kaule Samuel.
Hello, everyone. My name is Samuel Kaule Sentokoza from California, United States.
All right, thank you so much. And from Uganda, Robert, how is everything?
Hello, everyone. Nothing bad. We are just good. Nice to be here, and greetings to all the team members. My name is Pat Robert Larubi. I am in Omoro, in northern Uganda. That is part of Gulu.
And lastly, on my list is African Thinker. Where are you joining us from, African Thinker?
Hi, everyone. My name is African Thinker Camille. I'm joining you from Johannesburg, South Africa. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We've had things that are happening in the country. We know these stories, some are good, some are bad, but this is the right time for you to raise them up as the world is watching you right now from all across continents, from Africa, here in the North America, down to Asia and everywhere. So African Thinker, first of all, I want to thank you for joining us today from Johannesburg. I'm planning on getting there someday, but let's look at the current elections that happened in Burundi. We saw the late President Nkurunziza being replaced, and there were a lot of celebrations taking place. But most importantly, can you connect that to what is happening in Uganda?
Thank you so much, and thanks to all our listeners. We are very happy to be able to discuss with you these issues of national importance. The situation that happened in Burundi during the re-election is completely compared to what is happening to us in Uganda. In 2018, the deceased president, Mr. Nkurunziza, organized a referendum. And during this referendum, the essence was to change the constitution so that he can rule forever, so that he can stay in his grip on power. The very same situation that has happened to the Ugandan parliament, it happened in Burundi. He changed the constitution, and in 2020, we have his friend coming into power who happens to be Evariste Ndayishimiye. Now, you need to ask yourself as a Ugandan, this gentleman fought so hard, changed the constitution, and when it came to 2020, he did not stand for elections. You need to ask yourself why did he even have to change the constitution? This is how dictators operate. They make you think they have left, yet in reality, they have not left. When Nkurunziza changed the constitution, everyone waited for him to stand for the 2020 election. He never stood. Reason being is that when he tried to change the constitution, there were massive protests around Bujumbura and Burundi. The president was completely scared that if he stands again, people will still rise up and chase him away. That's why we had his friend coming into power. But what does this say to you as a Ugandan? There is one thing you have to know, and this I'm going to put it in my mother tongue. But dictator, banachigwanizi, baina mama omu. Dictators have one mother. The target that Nkurunziza had in Burundi by putting his friend is the same trick that Gaddafi wanted to do in Libya by putting his son Saif al-Islam. It never worked. The same situation Museveni is trying to do in Uganda with Muhoozi. It's not gonna work because we're gonna stand up and stop this nonsense. What did the people of Burundi have in 2020? They had exactly what Museveni wants to give us. They had a scientific election. Why do I call it a scientific election? Because scientific election means an already rigged election. In other words, if we as Ugandans accept a rigged election, we are completely accepting what is already happening in Burundi. What happened in Burundi? They don't have change. They never had change. They had a change of face. They still have the same friend of a dictator in power. Human rights abuses are a continuous activity in Burundi. We are all aware that the human rights activists in the names of Nkuki, who happen to be a strong human rights activist in Burundi, was sentenced to 34 years in power. The same situation is happening in Uganda. Hence, I come up to say all dictators have the same mother. A complete human rights abuses in Burundi has been going on. Rigging of elections has been going on. The opposition in Burundi went to challenge these elections in a court of law, and the results were the same. There was no need of going to court. The same situation we have in Uganda. The same way you see a chief justice rule that Museveni has won, yet we know he didn't win the 2016 elections. It's the same situation happening all over the country. These dictators have the same mother. But you need to ask yourself one question as a Ugandan. How do we walk out of this? How do we overcome this atrocity created by these dictators all over the continent? In Burundi, we have 1,200 people were killed. We have 400 people that were displaced by Nkurunziza during the referendum, while he was going around the country asking people to accept the change of the constitution, which was completely rigged. Where do we stand as Ugandans? Where do we stand as Africans? Dictators don't listen to diplomacy. Dictators don't listen to people's voices. They listen to the people around them. The same situation you see in Uganda. You see that Museveni listens to nobody. He only listens to the group around him. The Tumwines, the Muhoozi, the Mbire, the Otafires. That group, he doesn't care. Our people are busy dying in houses of hunger. He doesn't even want to listen. Thousands of Burundians are dying of hunger. Thousands of Burundians have died due to hunger and death by the military. The dictator paid no attention. So we as Ugandans, what is our target? Our target is to say we should not be fooled by these dictators because they have one mother. They do the same things. The thing that happened in Libya, in Sudan, in Burkina Faso, before they ousted Compaore, are the same things we have in Uganda. How do you oust a dictator? Because they have the same mother. We shouldn't like ourselves. They operate the same way. They have the same modus operandi. How do we stand up as Ugandans and get rid of the dictator? The only way to get out of the dictator, out of power, is by standing up to our constitutional right and protect. That is a constitutional right. You know why we have to protest? Because dictators don't listen to the law. Dictators don't care about the rule of law.
African thinker, before I let you go, do you think the combination of what we saw yesterday, young man putting fire on himself because of bribery, could be a spark of for a new revolution in Uganda?
In Algeria, when a youth set himself on power, the whole population went on the street. What do Ugandans get from this massacre boy, Hussein? Hussein, who set himself on power, what do we learn from him? All we learn is that we need to stand up and raise our voices. We need to stand up and join the streets. We need to stand up and say enough is enough. Nobody is going to listen to you because the dictator doesn't care. You have to stand up to be counted. You have to stand up to raise your voice because the dictator will never ever listen to you. All right. They operate the same way.
Sure. Thank you, African thinker. I think you've been talking about the issues of freedom that Ugandans need to express their freedom. And last Sunday, we saw a freedom show where Bobby Wine was entertaining Ugandans, but at the same time, he was giving out his ideas and what he sees or what he needs to see happen in the country. So, Haruna, if I may come to you straight away, we saw certain things that Honorable Kyagulanyi did during his show. We saw him putting on having a comb in his hair. We saw him putting on a vest that had an image of the late Rita Nabukenya. What does that mean to Ugandans? Do you think Ugandans pick any idea from all that he displayed on Sunday? Haruna.
Yeah, Mr. David, I think it's not a question of entertainment only. Because if you look at the freedom show that Mr. Kyagulanyi hosted, it was showing something, or a message hidden behind. Just look at this. All Ugandans needs to know, why did he name it as a freedom? All of us know that freedom is the state of living in a fair and a free nation, regardless of your ethnicity, nationality, religious, economic, and social backgrounds. But sometimes it beats my understanding when I don't know how Mr. Kyagulanyi stages his things. I don't know whether it just falls by coincidence or he just prepares it to deliver his message indirectly. For example, take a look at his attires. We are seeing he's putting on a t-shirt having the image of a late Rita Nabukenya. So this is a big symbolic feature which is showing us some hidden message which Ugandans need to know. Just take an example. It indicates to us the foreign comrades of ours who died. We all know that Rita Nabukenya, she was killed, and she was among part of us. The likes of Yasini Kawuma, the likes of Sweet Pepis, Dan Cheyune, Boni Omar, Muhammad Chirumira, all those people, you know them. So if you go on ahead saying whatever he was doing and the symbolic message there, we all see that the call of women into this participation. Just take a look at my sister Patricia, she's here, she's a lady. And Barbara, she's here, she's a lady. Take an example of my coordinator, Patricia Mugisha from UAE, she's a lady. So which means women have a role to play in this struggle. As we see that Nabukenya did a lot in that, we are seeing that the call for youths to participate. I'm a youth. Rita died when she was, I think, in her 20s. So which means we youth have a lot to contribute to our country through this. as we witness it, we are seeing the atrocities and the atrocities committed by the security operatives. We all know that Rita was just murdered by the police forces, which we are against. Those are the atrocities being committed to the Ugandans, the ones who are arrested, the Muslim clerics who are being gunned down every time, other foreign comrades of ours who are being also killed. Those are atrocities being committed by the regime. We see it also reminds us to always to stand on the truth. We know if Rita did not stand on her two legs and standing on the truth, she wouldn't have died like that.
Right.
But
so,
I remember, let me just allow me to quote one word from the late Chirumira in Uganda. He said, "Boyogera mazimofa, boyogera makorachi, nebosirikofa." So you rather die, you rather speak the truth and die. So it's a symbolic future which we get out of that.
I want to ask you a question, Haruna, before you go on. If you look at what happened, we saw him putting on a comb. A lot of people, not only people who are supporters, but all Ugandans, even in the international community, has been asking a question: why did he have to put that comb? What does it mean to the struggle?
Yeah, that's why sometimes I say that, because if we look into the history, 40 years so long ago, 40 years back, we used to see the Afro beats. People who had the Afro combs, they used to put them as a sign of saying no to oppression. Since we are in the movement that's saying we are tired of the oppression, we are tired of frustration, we are tired of being overruled and overstaying in power. So it's an indication that Ugandans are fed up and we are saying no to oppression. That's why he took that and brought the message using the comb, using the picture. So in my conclusion, I could say that Mr. Kyagulanyi, he's a very clever guy, very intelligent, who passes his message in different ways. Though they used to know him as a musician, but he's trying to play around in a way which is not very easy to understand. So I really appreciate the way he's sending message to the public, and I hope most Ugandans received the message very well. Thank you so much, sir.
I want to thank you so much for your submission, because we are seeing all around Africa people are exercising their freedom, asking for change, and of course sometimes reaching to that dream. We recently saw what happened in Malawi. Over the years, they've been saying we are tired of the dictatorship. We are tired of the dictatorship, and finally the judges came up and said, you know what, enough is enough. The military came up and said, you know what, enough is enough. So I want to ask, I want to leave with Haruna and go straight to Barbara. Barbara, do you think Ugandans pick a lead from what happened in Malawi? We saw a new president declared from opposition. It was history made. What does it mean to you? And of course, what can Ugandans learn from that, since many of them are under oppression?
David, I wish our people borrow a leaf. We need to do the Malawi. We need to go the Malawi way. Unfortunately, since independence, we've never had a peaceful transition of power. It's either a coup d'etat, a military council decision, or a guerrilla war, like the 1986 guerrilla war. And with that, we have a lot to know. It goes back to May 2012, when Dr. Jane Mayewu conducted a fraudulent election in Malawi, where Peter Mutalika got 39% and Dr. Lazarus Cherewu got 35% and Dr. Chirema got 20%. Dr. Chirema went to court, and Chakwera, went to court and contested the election. It's from there that the people of Malawi were so resilient and protested the theft of their vote, to the extent of being taken onto the streets for close to a year. They did not give up. In Uganda, we protest for a week and we are done. Malawi, they did not give up. In Africa, we are not exposed to such longevity of our principled protest, but Malawi did it. And also Uganda, we can do that. Look at how the army played played a neutral role in Malawi. They came in to protect the people of Malawi. They came in to protect the human rights of the people of Malawi, the right to protest. Even when the even when the police threatened to violate it. Also, the army stepped in way back in 2012 when Dr. Peter Mutharika wanted to, with his cables, wanted to abolish the constitution. The army played a neutral role too. And we also saw the army playing a neutral role after by guarding the president-elect. But in Uganda, I've had Brigadier Richard Kanyemira threatening us even before the elections. He doesn't know if his boss is going the Nkurunziza way before the 2021 elections, but he's threatening us if we go to protest. It's our right to protest as Ugandans. It's a constitutional right. David, I also wonder what our courts of law are doing, our judges, our lawyers, the human rights lawyers and the Law Society in Malawi jumped in, played their role. They issued a 20-day stay order and filed to court. The court in Lilongwe that nullified the elections had to give a 2-day order.
But Barbara,
such that,
do you think Ugandans need to demand for judicial reforms, electoral reforms right now that you're going into 2021 elections? Just like what you've said in Malawi, do you think that can work in Uganda, and should Ugandans embrace it?
David, since 2011, the opposition has asked for electoral reforms just on paper because we don't go into action. That's why Museveni is still taking advantage of us. Since 2011, and we are going into a sham election. The Electoral Commission has not been independent at all. Like in Malawi, for example, in Malawi, the constitution came into play to constrain the president from electing the electoral commission officials. But in Uganda, it's not the case. It's aboluganda mikono abe mikwano. It's not by merit. Also, our courts, where are the judges when the electoral commission is violating the constitution? Our right to a free and fair election. Where are our judges? In Malawi, it was the judges that annulled Dr. Peter Mutharika's re-election. But us, even when the electoral commission wants to conduct a scientific election, our judges, our law society, and also the human rights lawyers are quiet. Our judges are quiet. We need to step in. All stakeholders in Malawi played their part. Malawi judges did a recommendable job by annulling the election. And also, we look at the role of the army. Our army has been in Uganda are the champions of human rights abuse. They torture, they brutalize Ugandans, and also they abuse human rights. In Malawi, the army did a very incredible job by stepping in to prevent the human rights abuses. David,
yep.
David, also I want to talk about unity, because most people say we cannot unite, but also unity plays.
Before you talk about it, and before I take you off, when you talk about unity, almost all opposition leaders are not in agreement with that. So what impact will that create for one, the people power movement, and of course the new Uganda that many Ugandans are seeking for?
David, unity played a great role in the democracy of Malawi, like Dr. Saulas Cherima, who got 20% in the 2019 election, was the champion of the Tonse Alliance. That played a formidable role in bringing about democracy in Malawi.
All right, sure.
Yes.
I want to
I'm sure if we all come together as opposition, we can make it happen.
All right, sure, Barbara. I want to thank you so much because you've really given out the key issues that are affecting almost all African countries, and it's not different what we see in Uganda, what we see in Kenya, what we see in Malawi. Not forgetting in Mali, there were a number of protests that took place in Malawi asking for Keita's resignation, and this is a very good example for many Ugandans who are asking, well, can demonstrations take place? Can they bring about change? Can we have such a great moment? Now, I want to bring in Edward from Texas. This is very critical because many Ugandans are not really thinking about it. They're saying, no, we've had protests from Dr. Besigye, we've had protests from Sebagara, we've had protests from everybody. They have not yielded any change. Do you think if people can borrow the idea that took place in Mali, that idea can do a great impact to the politics of Uganda?
Thank you so much, Comrade David, and thank you for hosting this wonderful show that discusses matters of importance to the political direction of Uganda as a country. Of course, the situation in Mali is not any different from the situation in Uganda, and I wouldn't be surprised if what happens in Mali ends up happening in Uganda, because some of it is already happening. I'll give you an example. In 2018, in Mali, they were scheduled for an election in November. The dictator by then changed the date and came up with reasons of security concerns. And so they postponed the elections to June 2019. Before the elections, again, the Council of Ministers rescheduled the election for May 2020, this year. Before the elections, the sitting president by then, who was called Babakar Keita, ensured that the opposition leader, Somalia Sisi, was arrested and detained. He did not stop at that. He ensured that all the opposition members of parliament that were vying for re-election or for election were detained. The elections were militarized, people were brutalized, and the turnout was so low. The turnout was said to be only 40%, which was very poor. Protests rose up in the capital, Bamako. People demanded for the sitting president to resign, and the West African Regional Bloc, which is ECOWAS, came up and advised Mali to set up a rerun election. Why am I saying that the situation is similar to Uganda? In Uganda, we have got, instead of ECOWAS, we have the East African Community, which oversees the elections in East African countries. In Uganda, we have a situation where opposition members of parliament are brutalized. Recently, we have a young gentleman in Kampala called Roy. Dr. Roy was arrested and up to now is still detained. And Dr. Roy is an example of one of the young people that wants to become member of parliament. The list is long, so long, and we can go on and on. So apparently, Uganda is presumably a constitutional country. However, that is just on paper. So the dictators use elections to legitimize their rules. They are staying in power. by organizing sham elections, just like it happened in Mali, and they militarize politics, and they act mischievously to intimidate the public so that they cannot exercise their fundamental right of choosing their leaders. So the situation in Mali being very similar to the situation in Uganda, I believe that it's time for Ugandans to say no to this kind of dubious behavior by the government.
Yeah, because you know the government just recently announced through the Electoral Commission that they're going to have scientific elections. So that is one way of paving way for what we are going to see come 2021. There's so many changes that have happened. So do you think this can lead many Ugandans to go on the streets and say enough is enough? We need a new government. We need a government that caters for the interests of Ugandans, not for the interests of the inner circle of probably President Museveni today.
The government of Uganda acting in a mischievous way when it comes to times for election is not new to Ugandans. However, this time in point is a very special time for Uganda, a time when the youth and everybody is ready for change. And I believe that these dubious actions and this mischievous behavior of the dictator has crossed the red line, and I believe that Ugandans are going to stand up for their rights because all the world is looking at Uganda, and it's time for change. And I believe they're going to rise up, they're going to get to the streets, and they're going to stop this scientific election that is designed to usher in the same leadership that has destroyed Uganda.
Right.
David, allow me to end by reminding Ugandans in the 1960s, when President Kennedy was assassinated, Lyndon Johnson became president of the United States. When Lyndon Johnson believed in the civil rights, in other words, the emancipation of the African Americans. However, by then, it was very difficult for a president to pursue such a dream because the majority of the country was conservative, and therefore such a president would suffer consequences for supporting the civil rights. And so Lyndon Johnson invited Dr. Martin Luther King into the White House, and this is what he told him. He told him that I support the civil rights bill, but if you want me to sign it into law, make me sign it. In other words, he meant that the African Americans had to demonstrate for their rights. And that is exactly what happened. The African Americans got to the streets, they demonstrated and demanded for their rights. And Lyndon Johnson signed the civil rights legislation. So now is the time for Ugandans to determine where they want to see their country go in the next 5 years and in the future. Thank you.
All right, sure. Edward, I want to thank you so much for raising those issues. Now, before I bring in any other comment or discussant, the number of things that we need to address as Ugandans. Number one, every Ready Friday, put on your ready attire to show the Republic of Ugandan government that you care about your country, that you are determined to have a change that you've always been thinking about or dreaming about, or even thinking for your future generation, probably your children, your nieces or nephews. Secondly, People Power Movement has a website where you can go and donate all your finances that you have to make sure that the movement keeps on going forward. The activities need to be financed. That is what politics is all about. And politics, for you to have a say in such an environment, you need to contribute towards the cause. So go ahead, go to the People Power website, go to the numbers they normally provide, and support in any way you can. Even your idea, the comment you're posting here on different social media platforms and other media platforms, they really mean a lot, because some of your comments are being used by those at the Secretariat of People Power to make the manifesto come to the reality of how and why Ugandans need it. So next, I want to go straight away back to Uganda, because we've been comparing other countries, looking at the politics of Malawi, Mali, Kenya, and others. Now, I want to center to what is happening in Uganda. Recently, we saw the People Power Movement Secretariat presenting to Ugandans their new structure that many Ugandans have been asking for. We don't see the Electoral Commission in People Power movement. We don't see this. How are you going to handle the elections when they come in 2021? Well, they proved everybody that People Power is a very organized organization or movement that can lead the country forward. So I want to bring in Benjamin. Benjamin, we saw a number of new leaders that were presented to us as Ugandans last week from Electoral Commission, and some of them are journalists, and others are just what people call them mouthpieces that can give all the information rapidly. So let me ask you this question. What impact will that create to Ugandans who have been following the movement, who love the movement, who support the cause, who support the change come 2021, and not just 2021, but for the future of Uganda? What impact does that create?
All right. First and foremost, I want to take this opportunity to thank you, Mr. David, and all the the previous speakers who have just spoken before me. Yeah, as you all heard, my name is Benjamin here in Boston, and even I want to thank all the people out there who are watching on YouTube, wherever platform, Twitter, Facebook. I really appreciate you guys everywhere you are. Yeah, I thank the appointments that were done in our People Power movement. They really mean a lot. Before all this, people were requesting our principal to show his structures. Yeah, which was good, but some people never made it. They never made it for good. They wanted structures that they would break, because something which is very organized, it is easy to break. So this is what they were looking for. They were looking for people that they were going to buy and try to destroy People Power. But it is on our challenge, we the people that they have appointed, to show that we are resilient, to show that we are ready to serve the people of Uganda. It's on to us to say no to bribe, to say no to corruption. So we are the face to the Ugandans. Whatever we, the people who have been appointed, say, it's what the other people are going to follow. Let's create a Uganda where people are going to love and respect it. I send my message to these people, like the deputy legal team, Shamim Marende. That lady has really done a great job in People Power. She has really inspired me, and I believe that she has inspired a lot of people. She has worked tirelessly, and she has really rendered a great job in People Power. Even one of the people that were currently raised up, that were unveiled, was Waiswa Mufumbira. I think I've seen Waiswa Mufumbira in many occasions. I remember that election which was in Hoima. Waiswa Mufumbira was very active, and I really loved that. These people have really showed us that they can work, and they are willing to work for Ugandans. So I have a great confidence in these people that they are going to do a great job. But just a word of advice is to be resilient, to be patriotic, to be people who love their country, not people who are there to serve some other special interests. Yeah.
All right, sure. I want to thank you, Benjamin. But lastly, before I bring in Patricia, do you think that these key leaders that now we have or we have seen taking part in People Power movement, their interests at one point will be deviated probably by the government? We have seen many People Power supporters who used to be People Power supporters leaving the organization. Do you think these new leaders are going to make it a point that, yes, this is a time to make the movement move forward? Benjamin.
Thank you very much. I believe in these people, and I have confidence in these people. I trust them. Looking back to what they have been doing so far, when you look at this gentleman like
Jeremiah and
Katana, Jeremiah, those old people, really they have been there before even the whole structure was laid out. They have worked with their hearts, and this is not the right time for them to give up. Because if they were to give up, they were to give up before all this thing has been organized. So I have a very big confidence in these people that they are going to give us good services all they need is our backs. And I promise them, me as Benjamin, they have my back. And I know they have, all the Ugandans are on their side. So we are waiting to them to give us their responsibilities that are assigned to them, and we shall be there for them.
All right, sure. Benjamin, I want to thank you so much. Out of what we discussed today, it has given me actually a new point or question that I want to pose to Patricia. Because of these structures, we have seen the recent past, in the last few months, Honorable Chabini wanted to repatriate Ugandans from China who were being affected by COVID-19 and racial discrimination that was taking place against African people. And Honorable Chagran, in working together with the other partners, asked the government of Uganda to allow the movement bring back these people at a free cost, Patricia. And today, the government said, no, we cannot allow opposition leaders to bring back these people. Where are they going to stay? What security? Who is going to provide them food? As we speak, the government is putting out millions and millions of dollars or Ugandan shillings to repatriate Ugandans from South Africa, from the Caribbean, from North America. The question is, we have had the prices. The prices are really big. On a one-way ticket, asking for probably $1,600, $100,000. It's a big thing. So, Patricia, what impact? Where do we see this taking Uganda? After government saying opposition no, and it's now taking up the responsibility. Is that the best way to go about it?
Well, of course, it's not the best way to go, but it's important to note why they could not allow Bobi Wine to bring the people in China back to Uganda for free. It would have shed light on Bobi Wine's power as a leader, and they could not allow that. And that's exactly why we are doing this scientific election. Again, it goes to show that Museveni is really only worried about Bobi Wine in Uganda, and that's exactly why he should carry the flag on behalf of opposition. But to move on, yes, the Ugandan government is chartering a plane to repatriate Ugandans from the United States to Uganda. But the sad thing about this is that they're going to charge them $1,600 to $1,750, which is a lot of money. You know, clearly they do not have this money to pay for these flights. And the reason why they do not have this money is because we've been on lockdown here since for the last about 3 months. So if you think of a Ugandan that came for vacation, or a Ugandan that came to give birth, or vice versa, like a head of the family that's missing on the ground to take care of his family members, they have already been spending money during this time period. And now you're asking them to pay $1,600. Some of these are students who don't have any money to pay for these flights, you know? So I think it's very unjust. So at this particular moment, over 180 Ugandans have expressed interest in returning back home, which is a total of over $288,000. That's a lot of money. You know, that is a lot of money. And the reason why I point this out is because the government of Uganda borrowed $491 million from IMF. So why can't they use, at the very least, $2 million of this money to take back the Ugandans that are stuck here and in other parts of the world back to Uganda? And then another question, is it really a repatriation process if they're paying for themselves, or are they simply getting flights to go back home? So on this note, I'd like to note that I checked on flights going back to Uganda with Ethiopian Airways, and these flights were about $800. But yet the government is charging $1,600 to $1,750. At which point, even after they return back to Uganda, they're going to have to pay an extra $200 per day for quarantine, which is absolutely wrong and absurd. Considering these are taxpayers and these are Ugandans that should be protected by the Ugandan government. And so I went on ahead and called the Ugandan embassy here in Washington, D.C., and I talked to one of the ladies there. I was asking her, I was like, hey, I'm a student, I'm living in Indiana. I don't have money to return back home. I can't ask my family back home for money because Uganda has been on lockdown this time. So they too don't have any money to send me. So is there any help you can give me as the, Ugandan embassy here in the Washington, D.C. And they basically said no. And the reason why I was asking them that is because we have to think that a Ugandan that's in, let's say, Jamaica, or a Ugandan that's in West Palm Beach, Florida, would actually have to find their own accommodation to come from West Palm Beach or Jamaica to come to Washington, D.C. to catch this flight to head back home. So there's the cost involved in this whole thing, to be honest with you, is pretty much over $5,000 when you really look at all the different factors, which is absolutely upside. And so, solutions.
Before you give me solutions, do you think there's kind of any fraud in between that is going on in this process?
Of course, there's fraud. The company that's going to get the money, the $1,600 to the $1,750, is a private company. And then, as I said earlier, flights to Uganda are about $800. So now I'm asking, where does the $1,600 come in? I did ask the lady at the embassy that, and she told me that since there's no flights allowed to travel, and they're getting a private flight, that's where the extra costs come in. So then I asked her, well, why doesn't the government eat up that cost? So I was like, is there anyone that I can speak to? She told me that they get their orders from the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Minister of Health in Uganda, and I can contact them for answers. So they did not have any answers for me. But the question is, who does the Minister of Foreign Affairs work for? They work directly for the dictator. And who does the Minister of Health work for? These are people that are clearly working directly for the dictator, because why else is Uganda on lockdown right now, 2 months later? Uganda should not be on lockdown. So there is definitely fraud involved in this. May I move on to solutions?
Yeah, sure.
So UNA, which is a nonprofit here in the United States, gets about $150,000 to throw a big party. This organization, in my personal opinion, has not really shown that they can deliver any service to Ugandans. Personally, I have never been contacted by UNA. If I go on their website, there's really nothing there for me. So why are they getting $150,000? To do what? To throw a big party once a year? This year, during COVID-19, that has killed over 500,000 Americans, UNA is trying to throw a party for over 300 people with $100,000. But the crazy thing is that they're still going to pay. The people that are attending this party are still going to pay at least $200 to attend the party. So what is this $100,000 being used for? Why are we accepting Ugandan taxpayers' money here in the United States when in Uganda there was the Kasese floods? Right now, with this situation we're talking about the Ugandans need to return to Uganda, why can't this money be allocated to things that are important, like Kasese, like the repatriation of Ugandans back to Uganda? So that's one solution. Get back the $100,000 you gave UNA and put that money towards the repatriation process. Another solution, in Uganda, our neighbor Kenya, they have Kenyan Airways. Why can't we call Kenya and talk to them nicely and basically ask them that, hey, you get your electricity from us, which is umeme. We will give you a discount on your electric if you can help us repatriate our people using Kenyan Airways back to Uganda. So there's a lot of solutions on the table that we clearly have not looked at. And it's very clear why we have not looked at these solutions, because the Museveni and his family, they own everything. And clearly, they do not care about the average Ugandan.
So you think that's a reason why Uganda should come up together and say enough is enough? We need to go on the streets and demand for our rights, to demand for our freedom and all that. Do you think that could be one of the reasons why?
Absolutely, absolutely. And when you hear stories like this, I don't get in any way whatsoever why opposition is kind of like derailing the unity. Should we really be fielding 4 strong opposition candidates, or can we field 2? Those are questions that we need to ask ourselves. Who is thinking about the Ugandan people? Who's thinking about the Ugandan taxpayer? Who's thinking about the gentleman that burned himself to death? And who is talking about him? We have a lot of things to think about. We need to unite
All right, sure. Patricia, I want to thank you so much. You've really, you guys have raised a number of questions. So I'm going to ask my producer to bring me back all of you on the screen so that we can have now a bigger discussion as we finish up the show. This is the reason why all of us come here and discuss. And I'm so happy to have joined you guys today to discuss with you and also be your moderator. The number of comments that are coming out from Facebook, we are live from the People Power Media Center. Now, I'd like to put this out there. If you have any suggestion or comment, you can always send some of your information to People Power Media Center or the People Power official website, and so that people can address those key issues that you have that you need to see being addressed. Now, I want to go straight away from the rest of the other guys that have not said any word tonight to let me know what you guys think based on what you've heard from these individuals. We are seeing a country that is suffering day in, day out. And nobody's rescuing the country. When Ugandans are called upon, they don't show up. And remember that the recent demonstration that was taking place, people banging saucepans and all that. Nothing happened. Recently, we saw a young man in Masaka proving that he's tired of bribery, the corruption that is taking place in the country. And Ugandans have not come up to say enough is enough. We have had some information which will soon maybe air out that the government of Uganda is planning on stopping border riders from operating within the Kampala Metropolitan District. So these are the things that Ugandans have not addressed. So I want to give it open. What do you guys think of what's happening in the country now that this young man, Hussein, died asking for his bike? The thing he uses to make some money, to take care of his children or brothers or sisters or mommy and daddy at home. He burnt himself because he was not satisfied by somebody asking for 100,000 Ugandan shillings to get back his bike. Patricia, I want to bring you first, then somebody else will come in before we end the show.
That death really pained me. You know, you look at this young man that clearly worked his butt off to save this money, buy his motorcycle, and then have it unjustly taken away from him. You know, people are so frustrated. But at this moment, for the Ugandan that's listening in, that's tuning in with us today, don't wait for that time to come where you get so frustrated that you actually want to do something like that to yourself. Let us fight. Let us fight now. Let us fight together, united, because whether you want it or not, you will be affected by the dictatorship and the situation that's going on in Uganda today.
All right, sure. Thank you, Patricia. African thinker, I want to bring you in at that moment. This was a very disappointing moment. It was a very embarrassing moment. We have seen international media houses reporting on the same case, a young man losing a life because a police officer wanted to take away his $100,000, that 100,000 shillings that he works for every day to take care of his family in such a very terrible time of COVID. What comes into your minds when you look at things like this?
Thank you so much, David. In Nigeria, when a young man did the same thing, it was the end of the regime. In Sudan, when a young lady came up, it was the end of the regime. There is only one thing that we have to do as Ugandans. We have to end the patience. We have to wait for the other or for a friend or for a family member. You don't have to wait for anyone. It is within our constitutional right. Let's not wait for this frustration to kill us, because at the end of the day, it is already beyond. They have done everything to frustrate us. It's time to raise our voices, stand up. We don't need to set ourselves on fire. But you need to ask yourself one question as a Ugandan. Rita was killed. He did nothing. Hussein Warugembe in Masaka set himself on fire yesterday for his border. We are not saying anything. For how long? How long are we going to keep quiet and look at these atrocities happen? It's time to stand up. It's time to say enough is enough and reclaim back our country. I thank you.
All right, thank you, African thinker. And at that point, I would like to bring in Semakula. Semakula, I know you've been following the discussion. You've been following the stories that are going back in Uganda. It's such a very terrible time that people are poor, but the government is not even thinking about their interests. And at the same time, we are looking at police still continuing to take bribes. We recently saw the government of Uganda setting up the anti-corruption unit, but it's just taking out small fish, but those who are working for the big fish are not doing anything. So, what's your opinion on that? What's your opinion on that?
I'm not Samakula. Somewhere.
Sorry, I apologize for that. Yes. What's your opinion on what you saw in
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Right.
I do not want to be in particular with that, but I've been observing all the events in Uganda, in Africa, and the world. But these have given me hope that change is coming to Uganda. People just need to be determined. What we saw in Malawi, what we saw in Burundi, in Mali, is an indication that when people are determined, they can bring the change they want. I want to use Nelson Mandela's words. He once said, there is no easy walk to freedom anyway. And many of us will have to pass through the valley of shadow of death again and again before we reach the mountain top to gain our desires. Some people think that, change will come just on the silver plate like this. Mm-hmm. We see people lost their lives. The life of, Sister Nabu Kenya did not go in vain. These men of Boda Boda were Lugembe. People must come out and claim their freedom. But it will not be an easy road. We all need to be determined that we want change in Uganda, because this is our country. So I'm just calling all the young people to determine their destiny. Some will go like the Boda. Uganda, corruption in Uganda is already it's a cancer. We know that. There is nothing you can do without bribing someone. Even to get, documents, you go to the hospital, even accessing the hospitals. You need to give someone something. People are dying because of that. That must come to an end.
All right.
I'm calling upon all Ugandans to come and fight for their freedom. Thank you very much.
All right, sure. Thank you so much. It's a good time for you guys and for me, and I want to thank you guys for the time you put in to come here on this great Red Friday to discuss a number of issues. I'm sure many Ugandans have heard, many Ugandans have learned, many Ugandans have listened to what we've discussed here today. And the People Power Media Center, we thank you for hosting us again. It's a Red Friday. I just want to remind every Ugandan, every Friday, put on a red shirt, put on a red shoe, put on red trouser, just to show that you're not satisfied with what's taking place in the country. You deserve the best as a Ugandan. You deserve the best as a Ugandan in the diaspora and as a Ugandan in Uganda. We lost our brother from Uganda who was part of this discussion, but I'm sure next Friday he'll be with us. But for now, guys, I want to thank you so much for your time. Patricia, African, I think Haruna, Edward, and all of you guys, Barbara, Samuel, and Benjamin. I want to thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your discussion, and great thanks to all those who have been watching us from all the different media platforms. The media platforms, you do a great job to send out the message. We thank you so much from the People Power Media Center. Have a great night.
People Power.
Oh, lutalo ngaluede tuliambale ngule oh lutalo ngaluede tuliambale ngule tulivimba mamoyagande.
All right, guys, I want to thank you so much and see you next Friday.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, everyone.